Hello, hello. Welcome to the Be Create podcast, where we focus on the three pillars of success, happiness, and all the things. But it all starts with being. And I'm so excited to actually have somebody who's a professional being, and that's Andrew Tanner.
Wow, professional being. I guess we're all professional beings, but I do make a living helping people remember that they are beings.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like Andrew and I should have met 15 years ago. And we didn't. We met last week, basically, through our friend Rachel. So big ups to Rachel from Buddha Pants for the connect. And we've just been having the greatest conversations. And I was like, hey, you definitely need to come on the podcast. You have so much wisdom. And I'll let you give your backstory a bit. As I hate reading from papers and I destroy them. So Andrew, please tell everybody about your magic.
Sure. Well, I'm Andrew Tanner. I own the Berkshire Yoga Festival, which launched last year, and we quickly became. This year we're going to be the largest yoga festival in the country with over 190 classes and about with 1,500 paid guests and probably a couple thousand people. And previous to that, I've been in the yoga world for like 25 years. I've been a meditation teacher for over 20 years. Worked for Kripalu as the head of their schools of yoga and Ayurveda. Worked for Yoga Alliance. But I've also loved the business side of things. And I've owned 6 yoga studios, have worked for 2 different tech companies in the yoga space. I'm currently developing an app as well. And I'll end my story by saying it all began when I was 19. And at the age of 19, I spent 5 years as a Daoist monk from 19 to 25, so almost 6 years. So I have the weird story of going from monk to businessman as opposed to the other way around, which is like usually the trope. But I really feel that meditation is a huge part of being a great business person, and that yogis and creatives can become really good at business and learn business as a skill, just like they are learning meditation as a skill or yoga as a skill.
I agree. And I also have to say you're also a dad, because that's a job on its own. And I sometimes realize that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a mom. That takes up most of my time.
Yeah. I'm really blessed that my wife is very supportive. I go through modes of like 2 years on, 2 years off, where 2 years I'm like starting up a new venture. I'm super obsessed with something. And I work like I usually though wake up really early, like 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, so that I can get a lot of work done. And she handles all the like getting the kids out in the morning. And then my job is to, definitely be home and spend quality time as many nights as I can and weekends. So it's important, I think, if you're going to have kids and a family and be an entrepreneur, that your partner is understanding of that. She actually really roots for me, which is so important when I'm really inspired. Like if I'm doing the thing that I feel really inspired about, she's rooting for me 100%. When there have been times where I'm with a software company, and we're a startup, but I'm just doing it for the money, and that was in the past. She wasn't. It was actually the hardest time in our relationship, I would say. So I know we're just getting into things, but that can be a huge drag or a huge boon to your entrepreneurial journey, is who your partner is and whether they're really inspired by what you're doing. And I'm just so blessed right now that all the projects I'm working on, I come home and I tell my wife, like, these, the yoga festival, the app I'm building for the yoga community, these feel like the great work of my life. And I love every second of it. Yeah. And then she gets fed by feeling like she's supporting that. So that's a really powerful thing. But when I come home in the past and I'm complaining about, oh my God, my boss is a piece of this. And, I don't even know why I'm doing this. It's like golden handcuffs or whatever. Then she doesn't feel great about having to do all
the other things,
house and family work that I'm not doing. She also works too. So, not as intense a job as I do, but, so she's like a Wonder Woman. But I think that's good advice for anyone, and leave it at that.
I know. No, I'm on the same boat. Like my husband transitioned. He had a transition year where he was in a job he hated and I hated, and I loved him, but I was like, I don't really like you right now, and like money's great, but like, can you, like I feel like we're all about purpose. And when you as a partner, and even like in business partnerships, I have a business partner for the Yoga Expo, Sandra, like if they're in a bad place, it's gonna affect everything, from communication, from vision, from mission, from day-to-day work. So yeah, any partnership. I'm a big fan of like smart communication techniques, and man, when there's
how did you pick your business partner?
She picked me. No. So I'm also a full-time business coach. And right when I had my baby, so I have a almost 5-year-old, I had her right before COVID. And the world, and not because of COVID, but like my world was split into like 3 different places. Like being a new mom, and my husband, he was an essential worker. He sold windows at the time, but he was considered an essential worker. So he was never home. So I was, I had my baby, I had my coaching business, which during COVID exploded because everybody needed to get online. And I was, the go-to. And then I had this expo that I had to pivot into something because I knew that there was so much potential with the expo. And
you bought the expo first just by yourself, and then So continue. So then you had this business partner. She just showed up.
Yeah.
And was like, I'm your partner.
Yeah. I posted on Facebook. I'm like, hey, I'm looking for an equity-based partner. Somebody who will handle this. I was very specific, as you should be. And I interviewed a few people, and Sandra was by far, like, we're very similar and completely different, which also in partnerships is good. Right. You don't want the same of you.
It's good to have a partner that has the exact same skill set as you and your friends. It's like the worst thing you can do.
The worst thing you could do. Exactly. So it was magical. We're both moms. We're both like very hard workers. She's a Virgo. I'm a Gemini, but like, there were so many wonderful things. And 3 years in, which if anybody's been in partnerships, that like the first 2 years are the hardest because you're still getting to know each other. So now we're entering year 3 and we're growing and clarifying and adding team members. So it was literally a post on Facebook. And then
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Have you had like bad partners in the past? Do you have any bad stories?
I've had great partners that ended up not great. So I've had bad experiences, but great partners.
I think business partnership is hard.
It's super hard.
I'm lucky right now. My business partner, actually, I have my core philosophy. This is a great story. My core philosophy on business partners and making decisions on what your next project will be or what you're going to do as an entrepreneur. It boils down to a story from this actor, Peter Boyle. So Peter Boyle was the grandfather in Everybody Loves Raymond, the curmudgeon-y grandfather.
Okay.
But he has a long career before that. He was Frankenstein in the Frankenstein's monster in Mary Shelley's, or in the like 1970 something Frankenstein movie. And he's been in a ton of movies. He was, believe it or not, like if you can try to imagine this guy or Google him, you can see his face. He wasn't like a big looker or anything, but he became an actor in his 20s after a failed attempt at going in the military, failed to be a Catholic priest, and then was like, I really just want to be an actor. And he went to like a seminar of some kind, and they had him write a mantra on a little piece of paper. And the mantra was like on a sticky note was, I work with wonderful people, doing wonderful things, making wonderful money. and he put that on his mirror of his bathroom, and he had it for years. And he ended up having a really interesting life, great career. He was John Lennon and Yoko Ono, best man for John Lennon and Yoko Ono's wedding. Anyway, I found out about this because in a Rolling Stone article after he died was like a bio piece on him. And it told this story and how he said, at the end of my life, working on Everyone's Loves Raymond was the ultimate completion of that philosophy of work with wonderful people, doing wonderful things, making wonderful money. And in that article, people talked about him like he was he was truly beloved by everyone on the cast. Like he was a very special person to everyone on that cast. And I'm sure there's a lot of egos and big shows or millions of dollars and everything. But so when I first heard that story that was shared to me by a mentor of mine, the first thought I had was, shit, I've spent like at least the first 15 years, maybe even the first 18 years of my career with things in the wrong order.
I was making wonderful money.
Well, to be honest, I was like wonderful things, wonderful money, wonderful people. So I've always been doing yoga for 20 plus years. I've always said like, I'm going to make money in the place that is the wonderful thing. So I thought that was all you had to have the right priorities as a good millennial. I'm like the oldest millennial Gen Xer line or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I can make money doing good work in the world. That's what I should do. And it took me until I was 40 years old and lots of wonderful things. Like everything I've done has been in yoga. Every software company I've worked on has been in yoga. Every nonprofit I've worked with has been in yoga. But if you're not working with wonderful people, it's not fun. And it's like you're missing a piece. And there can be a lot of Machiavellian characters in the yoga world too. And there can be a lot of, in any industry where whatever it's, you think it's ethical or not ethical. And so I made a promise to myself last year, but now it's almost 2 years ago, that I would prioritize working with wonderful people as my first priority. Then we'll figure out something wonderful to do together. Mm-hmm. And then we'll make wonderful money.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I actually ended up partnering with my best friend he was the best man at my wedding. I've known him for over 20 years. We were monks together. We've had parallel, but slightly different paths. And I just said, hey, I'm going to be 50-50 partner with you, even for my yoga teaching, but I felt that I needed to have like someone that would complete me, that I loved working with, I loved talking to every day. And I think a lot of yogipreneurs and entrepreneurs who are like yogis and creatives, whether they're coaches or whatever or not, they're missing like a partner that would be the integrator for them.
Yeah.
They're the creative, visionary, connector, strategist, but they don't have certain other skills. Yeah. So I just said, hey, you're my favorite person to talk to all the time. Like I want to be with you around you as much as I can. I want you to be my partner. And then we decided what we were going to do. And it kept pivoting and it turned into the yoga festival. And now it turned into this app we're building. And it's been the best decision I ever made in business in 25 years of business.
That's wonderful. And it's crazy because I was so hesitant coming out of a partnership that ended not well. I was so hesitant to bring somebody on, and the saying, right? Like you either earn or learn. So from my learning of that experience, and this is why I love telling people like, take the risk. Not always, but if there's something that's calling you, like take the risk, do the hard thing. Like in my case, it was open the yoga studio. That was the hard thing. It was expensive. It was a lot of work. It was wonderful, as you know, and do it with people. And if you know what that taught me, like that journey taught me leadership. It taught me, and not, being a boss. it taught me how to listen, taught me how to communicate. It taught me how to make decisions. It taught me how to navigate difficult situations.
Was the yoga studio the thing that ended in a not great way as far as the partnership?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely.
My first business was also a yoga studio. I've had 6, and yoga studios. Here's what I want to ask about that. My first yoga studio partnership also did not end well. We were really young. I was in my late 20s, so didn't really know much.
Yeah,
anyway.
early 30s. Yeah, for sure.
But do you think that money solves all problems, and if it was a better business model, then there wouldn't have been an issue? Or do you think that it was truly not a good partnership, not a smart, because the yoga studio business is such a hard business.
It is, right.
And it's just the margins aren't there,
I know.
So I advise a lot of yoga studios. I wrote a book in 2012 called So You Want to Open a Yoga Studio. And I give talks about owning yoga studios to people and try to help yoga studio owners. But I try to get them to think of the yoga studio as part of the marketing arm of a bigger, more scalable business.
A bigger business.
And that's how I think of my yoga festival too.
Yeah.
So this is a marketing arm of a bigger, more scalable software operation. And I think, so yeah, I guess, do you think that was the case for you?
I think it was a big piece of it. And where was the studio? Here in Miami.
Because you can make the yoga studio model work if you.
Oh, absolutely.
Lots of classes, hot yoga, more productize it versus like a classic yoga.
Classic, yes. Yeah. I think also there were a lot of different visions, and I'm definitely I'm a lone wolf in many ways because I'm a creative, and creatives, we tend to be lone wolves sometimes or most of the time. And because there wasn't enough money, I always found new ways to make money. I got into like network marketing and was doing really well. And, at some point you're like, I got to survive. Like I like nice things, and the nice things cost money. So I felt like I was always hustling because there was not enough of this. And that wasn't just me. I think all of us, or at least the 2 main partners, were constantly trying to make more money. And so,
but not from the core business. You were doing it outside for yourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. You weren't really committed then, or you didn't believe that you could through the core business.
I also think I was in the wrong business model. For me, freedom is my number one value. And I didn't know this at the time now that I studied business and all this stuff, like I know how important core values are. So I was operating out of my core values because yoga studio ownership requires you to be in a box. And I'm like out of the box. I'm like, I do what I want when I want. So when I found online business, I was like, oh, this is me. This is, I can do whatever I want, whenever. I can work from, Bali if I want to, or I can be a mom and, work at 4 o'clock in the morning and then take the rest of the day. Like it just made so much more sense. So, I'm sure we could get into that conversation about like working in your strengths. And like I was managing. I'm a terrible manager, terrible manager. So, it's such a...
When you run a yoga studio, you have to wear a lot of hats. It's a great lesson.
Yeah.
I also think it's a great way to build an audience. It's a great way to become a really good yoga teacher because you're teaching like 15 classes a week, or I don't know, maybe 5 at least, 10. There's a lot of good reasons to open a yoga studio, but you also had to learn sounds like you had to learn what your strengths were or not. And I believe another mentor of mine says, do what you do best, partner for the rest. The more you can focus on doing what you do best, partnering for the rest, it also applies to management because you should have the person who wants to manage be the manager, or the person who wants to do graphics do the graphics. Like when you said I'm a lone wolf, I think a lot of people who are really talented and smart and creative become lone wolves because they're good at lots of things. They're like Jacks or Jills of all trades. And that being said, I wonder what your core or what you do best. And if you only were to do that, and some people they want to do lots of different things, and that keeps them engaged.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm focusing on now, like my growth right now is to focus on the most core things and create systems, and delegate. And for me, that's super hard because I was like you, super lone wolf, super do everything myself for so long. But now the company I'm building, I pretty much delegate everything except for fundraising, big decision making, and then like hiring. So I'm focusing on, if I hire good people, then I can delegate everything to them.
Yeah.
And that's I think that the ultimate job of a CEO is to do that. So like when you think
absolutely.
of freedom, I wonder like how much, what work do you like doing?
I like creating, meaning new ideas, and I used to be the do all, but I have a team now. It's great. It's great. And if I don't have the person to solve that thing, I just hire them on like Upwork or Fiverr. Because one of my mentors said something that like hit the nail on the head and was like, whatever your hourly rate is, right? If you're doing anything below that pay rate, you are not operating smart. So
is that from Naval Ravikant, or is that someone?
No. Oh my gosh. Sharfin. I think it's Andrew Sharfin. I'm terrible with names, but it was like a huge.
So then the question is, how much would you charge for an hour of your time?
I'm at like $650.
Shit. So then you have to have a lot of people.
Well, I also keep a simple business, right? So within the simplicity of business, you can have a few people that can, make magic. Like I have, it's four of us really. And four of us manage, my online business, my software business. And really it's three of us. And like that fourth person like pops in and out. So I like slim, like a software company. I feel like
I'm building a much bigger operation.
You are.
Yeah. But I'm not saying one is better than the other by any means. So yeah, I don't, that's a big number I'm not there yet when I think of hourly for me, like if I have to pay someone, for me, I'm more at like, if it's $200 an hour or more, I will do it myself if I can. And if it's less, I'll try to farm it out.
Yeah.
But although I also farm out things that, I'm not a specialist at, that I used to do.
And that's also what I wanted to mention. I was like, there's also things that I do that bring me a lot of joy, like building funnels and design. Like I'm a graphic designer by trade. Like that's what I studied in university and I love it. So to me, like designing and like making my funnel look really beautiful, like it brings me joy.
That's hilarious. That's about the least thing. That's like, for me, it would be like, literally like skin crawling.
Yep.
It's crawling all over me.
Nope. I'm like, oh my God.
I would binge on Netflix for 3 days before being able to start that project.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's things you do that I'm like, like sales or like outreach. And when I say I'm a lone wolf, like I can be in my house for 3 days without leaving and talk to no one. And I'm like, so cool with that. because I'm like creating, I'm organizing, I'm doing stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm left in 3 days. Like, oh, I just picked up my kid from school. That was all I did. But there's things that I'm like, okay, you know what? This actually brought me or like creating an online course. Like, my God, I love that because I'm in my creative zone. That's my number one strength as a creator. So if I'm operating in that, like I went to art school so I could paint for 3 days and be totally cool because I'm in expression. But like doing numbers and spreadsheets, like that's the number one thing I hired out was my bookkeeper. Because you show me a spreadsheet with numbers on it and immediately I will watch Netflix for 3 days and not want to look at it.
Yeah. You're like, this spreadsheet looks good, but I think I'm going to start Squid Games. I actually love, we're very opposite.
Yes.
I see that together, Ari.
Yeah.
We should do something together. I love spreadsheets. I love figuring them out. To me, I do think, regardless of whether you love it or not, I do think getting a budget down on paper that works is a kind of an essential first step to starting a project.
Yeah.
Understanding what your revenue, and expenses look like and just that they work. That being said, even though I love it and I built out really cool pro formas for like the Berkshire Yoga Festival, I have like, really sick spreadsheets. They're super detailed ticket tracking and like,
oh my God.
But now for this new app company, as I'm trying to expand what I do. So I'm a meditation teacher. I teach 2 classes a week. I have an app, Daoist Yoga and Meditation. You can download it on the iTunes store. It's got a little green and gray yin yang logo. Then I have the Berkshire Yoga Festival, which is becoming pretty big. We're going to maybe add a second event next year. And then I'm now adding a third thing, which is a full on B2B and eventually B2C software company. This isn't like just, launching a white labeled app. This is
like you're building it.
Yeah, we're building from scratch. It's all under NDA and I can't talk about it. Maybe I'll come back on again in like 2 months and I can tell you all about it. But in doing that, even though I love bookkeeping, I don't love the bookkeeping. I love financial analysis.
Yeah, there we go.
I am hiring a firm that's going to do bookkeeping, accounting, and part-time CFO. To give me KPI reports, financial analysis, et cetera, so that I can then just look at the end result of that. Yeah. Because now, like, this has taken me a lifetime to get to that, level of, being. And if you had spoken to me, like I wasn't a big math guy in high school or anything, or college. I didn't take a single math class in college. My major was religious studies and psychology.
Okay. Yeah, no math.
I had zero interest in math, hated statistics, all those things. But I think this is going to be terrible to say, but I do like making money.
Why is that terrible?
I don't know anyone who doesn't, but
I love making money.
When you're a former monk, it's kind of like you don't want to admit that, but like I think because the work I've done is always work I feel proud of doing in the world. I don't feel guilty about it being successful. Yeah. And I like seeing that you can do things and then seeing how the numbers work. And so I learned how to do that as a skill. And I think that's a very valuable skill that someone on the team has to have. So
I have a question. We talked a little bit about the aspect of meditation and the importance of meditation and being able to focus your mind. I would love for you to give I hate the word tips. I don't know why. I just really dislike it. But advice, wisdom, more than anything. And look, my audience probably meditates. Like I would love, actually, you know what, guys, if you're listening to this, like, who here meditates on a regular? I would love to know. Maybe like hit me up on Instagram, ari.biz.coach, just in case. And if you do, you know, what are some wonderful things that have come out of it? But when I talked to Andrew last time, you told me something that was like, you know, that your style of meditation, or the way that you help people meditate, like, is like, it compresses the time or something like this, right? So maybe let's talk a little bit about that, because I know I've been like so guilty of waking up at 4:30 or 5 and like jumping on my computer and then taking care of the kid and then it snowballs. And I was like, damn it, I didn't do my like 5 minutes today, or my 3, like what, even my 1 minute. And then I feel guilty about it, and then I keep avoiding it, and then I come back to it. So maybe you want to give us like a little
Sure.
something.
I have a couple of things to share. The first is that I don't think everyone needs to meditate all the time, every day. I think this whole idea of like everyone, the modern human should have a 30-minute meditation practice each day. Meditation, what is the purpose of meditation? The purpose, I think, is to focus one's mind, and to experience insight. And these are two separate things. So, actually, and the third would be like reduce stress or manage stress. So if you're someone that is living their passion and it loves what they do, and like you can wake up at 4:30 in the morning and start working on it, you actually may not be that stressed. Nor you may also not be lacking concentration. Now you might be, and if that's the case, maybe a meditation practice would be helpful. But if you're not, then you don't need, there's like seasons to when you want to meditate. The third thing though is that meditation can lead to insight, and insight can lead to a total shift in perspective, and then can lead to, changes in how we live, changes in how we experience our inner and outer world. And when you would want insight is when you're feeling something gnawing at you from the inside. Because like all spiritual traditions start with someone who's suffering and wanting an answer or a release from their suffering. So if you're not suffering, you're not having problems concentrating, and you're not stressed, I don't see why anyone would have to meditate. It's like, does a kid have to meditate? Like, does a healthy child need to meditate if they're not suffering? And, so I just want to put that out there for people, that there's this thing of like, I meditate every day. It's like, do you need to? Because I actually don't believe in our most natural state that we would even need to meditate. And I have my background is in Daoist, Samje Taoism. My teacher is a Korean Daoist monk. I lived with him for 5 years. I continued studying, and I study today with a Daoist monk in a similar tradition. He's actually a college professor in Korea, philosophy, but he lives in the US and has a little retreat center here. And the point I'm making is that in Taoism, like the goal is to be in a natural state. And sometimes we think of like, we compartmentalize our life and say like, this is my 5 minute of meditation. And so I just say like, fuck all that, throw all that out the window. That's my number one thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Number two, you're relieved from the stress of feeling like you have to do that every day.
Thank you.
Okay. Number two, I would share that, typically I live my life with these 7, habits or pillars that I think of as a system for how to manage myself. And they're based on, the things that inspired me the most in my personal self-development journey, which was first the 7 habits of highly effective people, and then all of yoga and Taoism and the embodiment practices, which are centered in the chakras. So I teach a workshop called the 7 chakras for highly effective people, the 7 habits for highly effective chakras. Very important distinction. Because you can be an effective person and have screwed up chakras for sure. But if you have healthy chakras, and you are then I think you're going to be effective in life. And so for me, it starts at the seventh chakra, the crown chakra. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'll even go in there. It starts in our mind, the sixth chakra. The sixth chakra is where we spend most of our time. We're thinking all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And unfortunately, throughout the day, we're often thinking in a very reflexive way. And what I actually was thinking about this last night. I like to have conversations with myself before bed. Instead of like watching YouTube or listening to other people, I have conversations with myself where I'm saying like, hey, Andrew, how's it going? And I have this theory. Like one day I want to do like a PhD or something on, I think successful people talk to themselves and have really deep conversations with themselves. And they actually make that is a form of, I call that reflection. Mm-hmm. And to me, the habit of reflection, whether you're doing it in a journal or whether you're actually just having it in your own head, is what puts you in touch with your own inner voice, your own inner truth. And it's what focuses your concentration. When we're disconnected from that inner dialogue and we're just having conversations with the world, we lose our sense of who we are. And it's actually harder to meditate. So I do that first. That's the sixth chakra habit for me, is to reflect, whether it's talking to myself or journaling. And then after that, I sit to meditate. Meditation is the crown chakra habit, and it's about letting go of everything and becoming a conduit between the heaven and earth and literally becoming empty. But if you haven't had a good conversation with yourself and actually checked in with yourself and let your inner self know that everything's okay because you're actually listening and paying attention and you're maybe filing away ideas and things and writing them into a journal, if you haven't done that work, it's very hard to meditate. Meditation will be like a spiritual bypass at that point. And so it's also like, why meditate? You can do the concentration practices, but you won't have an insight meditation. So for me, I meditate every night before bed. I do my talking to myself, usually in the shower, and then I sit with my journal, talk to myself some more. Then I meditate just even sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes an hour. You know, my wife's sometimes sleeping there and I'm just sitting there for an hour, but I don't decide how long that's going to be. So that's habit 6 and 7. And why I like starting with those is bedtime is like a time where you can always, unless you've just been drinking or doing something unhealthy, you can always kind of control that. Mm-hmm. You know, and it doesn't have to be 8:30 at night. It doesn't have to be early. It could be doing it at 2 a.m. But it's better to do that before you go to bed, even if it's 2 a.m, than it is to go straight to bed. Okay. Your sleep will be more productive. And the habit for the first chakra is sleep. Yeah. So the quality of your sleep, if you think about it, your first chakra is related to fear. Mm-hmm. You've probably heard about this. And the ultimate overcoming of fear is sleep. Because as we evolve as humans, you can only sleep when you actually feel safe. Yeah. Yeah, of course. You're like, okay, am I not going to get eaten by a bear animal right now? Right. And so you start with reflection and meditation because that improves your sleep. And then that process, then when you have good sleep, then the second chakra habit is movement. The third chakra habit is prioritization and organization, because that's about empowerment. I think the second chakra being movement, I think that's obvious. Movement is digestion. Movement is physical movement. Movement is moving your energy. But with the third chakra being about your solar plexus is like your power center. And what empowerment is really when you know what the next decision, like what decision to make, and you make it. Like when you're not sure about a decision, the feeling is the feeling of disempowerment.
Yeah.
So understanding your priorities, you talked about earlier, understanding your values, the more you understand yourself. And then for me, I have a whole decision-making matrix that I borrowed from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. His third habit is called putting first things first. Oh, no, sorry. What is it called? Shoot.
Do you want me to look it up? I can be like that.
Yeah, you're going to be
Joe Rogan, right? His guy.
Young Danny. I can't remember the phrase he has, but what it is he has a priority matrix where you look at all your tasks, your to-dos, and you divide them into 4 options. Option 1 is something that's urgent and important.
Yes.
Option 2 is not urgent, but important. Option 3 is urgent, not important. And option 4 is not urgent, not important. So yes, option 4 is like scrolling your Instagram at night, right? Neither urgent nor important. You really
bad for you.
Yeah, you want to eliminate type 4 things.
Yeah.
Option 3 is urgent but not important. That's like text messages.
Yeah.
That's like people pinging you all day long, or like people trying to get your attention urgently, but it's actually not important to your life.
Yeah.
You also want to avoid those like the plague. Then you have type 1 things and type 2 things. Type 1 things, urgent and important. You could fill your whole life with those things, but they do have to get done. Yeah. That's like taking your kids to school, right? The big one, the dharmic vehicle, is type 2 things, which are very important, but not urgent. They're the things that if you do them, no one's going to force you to do it. But if you do it, your whole life will be better.
Yeah.
So for example, reflecting and meditating at night, no one's going to force you to do that. But if you do that, it's going to make everything else better. Or putting out your first piece of content, or, starting the business, doing the budget for the business, there's a lot of things in business that are type 2. And I would just say the better you get it, the more time you focus in type 2, the more successful you become. Because type 1 things you'll have to do no matter what. And the example that Stephen Covey gives is he says, imagine a fishbowl. And have you heard this story?
Maybe. I use like a jar, big rocks.
Yeah, you put big rocks in first, right? Everyone's heard this one now, but.
I don't know. Maybe not.
If you fill it with big rocks, then you might say, is it full? And someone might say, yeah, it looks full. But then if you add little tiny pebbles, you can pour them in. They fit in the spaces between the rocks. Is it full now? Yeah, it looks full now. No, now you can add in sand.
Yeah.
Right? And then is it full now? No, you can even add in water. And those are the 4 types of things. And so if you start with type 2, which are the big rocks, you'll get all your type 1 things done. And you'll even have time for stupid type 3 and type 4 things if you really want. But if you filled it with water from the beginning, then you're screwed.
Yeah. I actually use that analogy in a different way also. I use it big picture and like macro versus micro, how there's people that will look at the water first. They're like, no, I need the water. Like that's my husband, right? He's like, I need the water. I need every single detail of the thing before I can get started. And I'm like, let's be rocks. Let's be big rocks first. So it's one of my favorite analogies to bring in for like time management and like personality. Like I've had so many of my clients come to me because I'm such a big picture thinker. I'm like, let's go big. And then we figure out the little. And it's, people are like, I'm having a hard time starting. I'm like, well, because you're trying to figure out who you need to hire before you even have a product.
Yep. Putting things in the right order. Prioritization is so the core of, I would say like you're taking it one step deeper. So first it's like learning the difference between type 1 and type 2 things, but then it's using an expert like yourself to say, of the type 2 things, which one do we do first?
Which one do we do first? Yeah.
And with meditation, I would say that one of the things with Daoist meditation, what they're really good at is giving people the next little step with meditation. And I think with business, there's so many different options that you can do. And so doing the things in the right order is just essential.
I love it.
So then the fourth and the fifth one, we'll finish with those, is that the fourth habit is that you spend time listening, because the heart is about listening. So that means listening to your coworkers. Like I try, and this is something I fail at often, but I'm getting better at it, is because I'm the CEO, I try to share my opinions last, because it really affects people when you share your opinions first. And then in my own family, I'm also kind of the CEO, in a way, and, you as a father or mother. And so the more I practice listening, that keeps my heart open. And especially if you're doing a lot of business or you're a creator and you're doing a lot of talking, a lot of telling people. So I also feel like the chakra system, it's like a timeline for me. So it's like 6th chakra is evening, 2nd chakra is right before bed, root chakra is sleep, 2nd chakra is I move right when I wake up. I always do some exercise. 3rd chakra is I prioritize my day, my week, right? Then I do all the work. I work hard during the day. And then 4th chakra is I go home and I try to be present for my children and my wife. So it's like a whole thing. And then the 5th chakra is interesting because that's the one where we kind of use it all the time, but it's your voice.
Yeah.
Your ability to have a voice and to speak truth is actually related to all the other chakras. And that's why I put it as the last one.
Interesting.
I think instead of seeing the chakras as like a bottom up, I see it in the Daoist tradition. We call it the microcosmic orbit. And in the microcosmic orbit, how you circulate energy through your chakra system is the tip of your tongue connects behind to your top teeth.
The palate, right.
And that's how the governor meridian channel and the conception meridian channel connect. And the tip of the tongue is the end of the 5th chakra. It's the communication.
Narrative.
Yeah. So that's why I teach them in that order. And that's how I think of them in that order. Yeah. I don't know when it comes to meditation, I think there's a million different ways to do it. But yeah, to me, a life well lived will make meditation easy.
Yeah, I agree. And, for those of you who've been listening to my podcast or working with me, lifestyle first, back out from there. That's it. And honestly, like, when I realized that was it for me, right? That's when I was like, oh, yoga studio ownership does not make sense for me. That does not make sense for me. This makes sense for me. This makes sense for me because of that. I love flexibility. So it's so beautiful that, you said that, like, not everybody needs to like, at the end of the day, it's self-analysis and understanding yourself, right? It's coming back. That's why I said, like, this is be, create, inspire. Like, if we don't know who we are, how we operate, then how is anything going to really come to fruition from not knowing, right? Knowledge, wisdom, embodiment. Like, that's the most powerful thing. I think that honestly, like, yoga, that was the gift of yoga for me, was here it is. Here's your mirror. Now you know who you really are, right? Through, like, the shedding, the sweating, the moving, the squeezing, the sitting, the stillness. And that's why I love that. Like, I didn't love business 20 years ago. Like, I started teaching yoga about 20 years ago. And I was like, oh, I don't love. And then I had this aha moment where I was like, the way you move through your mat is the way you move through your business. At least how I used to teach, like it was like we get to the peak pose. We do all the things. We prepare ourselves for that peak pose. You know, I was an acro yoga teacher. And if I wanted to do a handstand on somebody's hands, there were lots of things I needed to do to be able to get that skill.
Yes. And honestly, I think that is one of the biggest challenges I think people have is just realizing the skill gap and being willing to stick with it.
Yeah.
You know what I tell people? I used to teach a lot of lectures in business lectures to yoga teachers. And I'd say the number one thing that will decide whether you make it or not as a yoga teacher is how long you're willing to continue to teach yoga and learn business.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you're not willing to learn business, then you have to find a partner who is. And if you're not willing to learn business and you're not willing to find a partner, then you're not going to be teaching yoga. You're only going to be teaching yoga for fun.
For fun.
You know?
Yeah.
Or doing anything, the coaching work, whatever.
Anything.
There are a lot of great coaches. I can think of so many great coaches that either refuse to learn the business or refuse to pay people to do the business for them.
Yeah.
And then I feel bad because I really, my whole MO is that I think the best world is one where everyone makes money doing what they love or has a career doing what they love, has a life doing what they love.
Yeah.
I really am curious how AI is going to affect everything. I think coaches and yoga teachers are actually a great career for the next 20 years until robots are so good that we can't,
Yeah.
Although it's so crazy, the digital, I'm giving a talk at my festival on the future of yoga and AI and all that stuff. I'm curious. That was a whole other conversation. But
totally other conversation.
I'm hiring right now for my app company. I'm hiring copywriters and strategy, content strategy people. And I have my pick of some of the best people because there's been all these layoffs in tech. Every big tech company has laid off.
Yeah, because of AI.
Strategists, writers, et cetera, because of AI. So those jobs are dwindling. And I wonder, for an in-person yoga teacher, it'll take a long time for robots and AI to replace humans or be better than humans.
Yeah.
But for a digital avatar, a digital version of you or I, even right now, you could literally program an AI and program to create this whole conversation could have been two AIs talking, which is so messed up.
So messed up.
It would take a lot of, I don't think we're there yet.
No. But we will be. Give it a couple years, honestly.
But then that brings up such a bizarre, that's, by the way, when everyone's going to start needing to meditate for insight.
Yeah.
It's going to be what's my purpose?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I think perfect segue into the next episode where I'm going to be talking to a scientist who's all about the brain. And I'm excited for you guys to listen to her because she's also a meditation teacher, but really works with the brain and breath work and all this stuff. So Andrew, this was such an awesome conversation. We'll put all his info below. Berkshire Yoga Festival.
We'll do I'll give you some coupon codes and stuff.
Yeah, perfect.
If you want to meditate with me, I have a Monday and Wednesday morning. I lead a 45-minute session.
Beautiful.
It's 20 minutes of exercises to make your legs really open, and then 20 minutes of sitting.
Nice.
And a little bit of philosophy.
Oh, well, I'm so glad that we had this. It was such a fun conversation because, we're both and we brought in so much of our experience and years of the industry. So hopefully you guys, took something out from this. And if you felt like this was a powerful conversation and you want to leave us a 5-star rating, please do so and subscribe and share it because that's how we keep growing our community and keep enlightening people with years and years of wisdom. And my goal is to keep bringing awesome guests and doing my solo episodes. So it would mean a lot to me. And Andrew, I hopefully will see you in June at the festival and
in May.
And in May, I was going to say at the Yoga Expo here in Florida. So for those of you guys, LA is April 13th and Florida in Fort Lauderdale is May 3rd. And we can't wait to see you. And thank you, everybody. Have a blessed day. Bye.
Peace.